At Villeries Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villeries provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villeries Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969.
Dave Miette Insurance Agency, 504-556-0809 or davemietteINSagency.com.
For over 48 years, Southern Tires and Auto Repair has provided services across the New Orleans metro area. Southern Tires offers a range of tires for all vehicles and ATVs. We also have a full suite of auto repair options, including brake repair, rim repair, custom exhaust, steering and suspension, tire siping, and so much more. Southern Tires and Auto Repair, 2550 Hickory Avenue in Metairie.
Cnc Drugs is a family-owned pharmacy that's been serving Southeast Louisiana for over 50 years. Whether you need help taking care of an elderly family member, a growing child, or even a pet, Cnc provides patient-centered care for your entire family. Cnc Drugs, large enough to serve you, small enough to know you. Locations in Mandeville and Araby.
Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher, as we are live in our Pontchartrain production studios, also live on WLAE-TV. Also, we're live streaming now each and every Thursday at 1 p.m. on our WLAE-TV YouTube page. So again, if you're out and about, you've got your tablet, smartphone, or near a computer, you can always check us out live each and every Thursday on our YouTube page. Today, Jeff Duncan joins us from The Athletic. We'll talk everything that there is to do with local sports, Saints, Pelicans, LSU, Tulane, UNO. We'll talk college baseball, college football, all the above. And of course, from The Athletic, Jeff Duncan is with us. Jeff, welcome to the show. Before we get started, I always like to let folks know a little bit about what's going on with The Athletic. You got your book that's out right now. You're doing a little bit of a book tour here and there. Tell us a little bit about what's happening.
Well, we got Athletic right now. We got a great deal, $1 a month subscription, so $12 a year for first-time subscribers. If you haven't gotten on board with The Athletic, I encourage you to do so. It's an amazing product. I think once you take that step and get it on an app or on your laptop, you'll be amazed at the amount of content we have. We have over 500 reporters. I mean, It's just an amazing place to work, and we're getting bigger and bigger. We're talking about global expansion. It's going to be a really amazing place to work over the next few years. So I'm excited about that. The book, if you haven't heard about it yet, Peyton and Breeze. That's kind of the story behind this 15-year run, this magical period, the most successful period in Saints history. Kind of get a chance to peel back the curtain a little bit on how the Saints put together their offensive game plans, the secret behind why they've been so successful, what makes Drew Brees tick, what makes Sean Payton tick. It's been very successful so far. We're coming out with a new paperback edition in October. Just filed a kind of an epilogue for that, with an update on Brees' retirement and the organization now going into what I think you could say is a transition period.
Of course.
With the new quarterback. The first time in a decade and a half. They have to worry about the quarterback situation here. So that book, if you want to get that, it's online at Amazon.com. You can also order it anywhere at the local bookstores. I always encourage people to support local booksellers.
Absolutely. Now, again, you were in Mississippi on a little bit of a book tour recently. You're going to be in New Orleans at some of the local bookstores doing any book signings and talking to folks about the book.
That will come in the fall once we come out with the paperback edition in October. That'll be right in the heart of Saints season, and people will be excited. It'll be a great, I think, addition to your maybe Christmas wish list.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, I gave out a couple to family members this past year, so I'm right there with you. Let's start off again. One of the things that you've been able to do is you gave us a look, you kind of pulled back the veil on what happened with the offense in your book. And then recently you got a chance to sit down with Jeff Ireland. And the article in The Athletic was absolutely spectacular because, again, it gave us a little bit of insight into what they're thinking when they're drafting players, what they're looking for, and really kind of more a look that a lot of us never seen before. Because looking from the outside in. First of all, talk a bit about that, and I'd like to get into some of the content with that, because I thought it was a very eye-opening article.
Well, I think if you read the Q&A, first of all, I thought Jeff was very candid and very insightful, kind of giving reasons behind each draft pick, what the thought process was behind those picks. But what I came away with was just more of a reinforcement, something I already knew, but he really reinforced how much prototypes mean to them in their personnel evaluations. And it's not just height, weight, speed, but that's a big part of it. They have a prototype for each position, and they have a height, weight, speed threshold that they try to get players and prospects in those prototype size, speed, ratio elements. And then as well, they have a prototype of intangibles, intelligence factors, passion, are they good people, high character, all those things. And I call it a Saints kind of guy. They are trying to find players that fit their culture and fit their defensive and offensive schemes. And so once you read this Q&A, you get a real I think sense of what the Saints look for in a player. And immediately, the first thing I think about is, say, certain linebackers. We see a lot of people when they're doing their mock drafts or cornerbacks that will mock a certain player to the Saints. Right. And I immediately know that they're not even going to consider
LSU, for instance.
Yes, it happens all the time. I mean, we saw, and you also, like Patrick Queen 2 years ago, a lot of people projected him to the Saints. He's not in the Saints prototypes at linebacker. Doesn't mean they don't think he's a good player and will be a good player for another team, but not in their scheme. They're looking for a certain type of player to fit that scheme, and they adhere to that. Doesn't mean they don't go off track.
Right.
They will every once in a while make some exceptions. Ian Book, the quarterback, is an exception.
Right. They did it with Quan Alexander.
Correct.
Right.
They will make some exceptions, but they don't want a team full of exceptions.
Right.
That's what you don't want. So you can really see how much it means to them, those prototypes that they set, and that's a Bill Parcellsism. Bill Parcells felt that way, and they like bigger players. And he even said in this Q&A that when they look at a defensive end, their first-round pick, Peyton Turner, he fits their prototype. They want tall, big, physical defensive ends. He goes, we're not looking for a Dwight Freeney type, smaller guy that beats people with speed off the edge. That's not what they're looking for. So you can kind of immediately in the future get a much better sense of what prospects the Saints might be interested in, and which ones they're not going to be interested in. Or if they are, it would be later in the draft. They might take a shot on a player, much like the quarterback Ian Book, who doesn't fit quite their prototype size at quarterback. That's why they take him in round 4.
Yeah. I mean, a guy like Sam Mills wouldn't have been on their radar.
No. Because
he doesn't fit. The LSU example is a pretty good example because you look at the type of linebackers that LSU has, and for years we've been talking about this linebacker is going to fit for the Saints. And they go away from that type of linebacker, and it's a head-scratcher for a lot of people in Louisiana. And again, these guys are going into the NFL. They're very, very productive as linebackers, but for some reason the Saints are not looking at them. This kind of tells us why.
Yeah, because it's their scheme and what they're asking those linebackers to do. And in their defensive scheme, a smaller linebacker will not be as successful. And so they're trying to put players in positions to be successful. And it's the same thing I thought he explained what they look for in a cornerback. And I know a lot of people projected Asante Samuel Jr. as a potential prospect for the Saints. He's undersized. He's a terrific talent. He's not going to be a New Orleans Saint.
Right.
So that's what they believe in, and they stick to their guns on that. And I think it's very clear that it's something that it's not like they wouldn't take an Asante Samuel Jr., but it would be later in the draft. He would be downgraded on their board because of his size limitations. Their board's going to have guys graded higher that fit their prototypes. That's why you don't see them with very many of those players.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that again was part of that Q&A, where again that you may be looking at a board that maybe you pulled off of your favorite draft guru, but that's not what they're looking at.
Right.
They're looking at something completely different in terms of their board. So where Peyton Turner may have been graded with maybe some of the other teams out there, he was graded much higher with the New Orleans Saints because of those prototypes. Is that fair?
Exactly. That's the point. So when people see his name called and they're scratching their heads thinking, oh, he should have gone in the second round.
Right.
Well, not according to the Saints. He fits their prototype, and he's what they're looking for in their defensive scheme to play defensive end, much like Marcus Davenport is. So it doesn't mean that these other players they don't think are good players, just not for them. That's why I keep saying he's their kind of guy. They're looking for certain Pete Warner, the linebacker from Ohio State, big, tall, rangy linebacker, very smart, high character, can play in multiple positions. Those are the things they look for. So now that I've gotten to know Jeff Ireland a lot better and had more time with him, I can now pretty much winnow out a lot of prospects that I don't think are going to end up here.
Yep.
And really, you can see how they find guys that fit their scheme, and then they go get them.
Yes.
They target them and they go get them because they really fit their mode offensively and defensively.
You and I were talking before the show, and I've discussed this on this show and also on the radio show in the past. I've said again that two guys you can't lose on Airline Drive right now are Jeff Ireland on the Saints side, Fred Vinson on the Pelicans side, based on what they have been able to do for these franchises. You mentioned about Mickey Loomis and the fact that there's not a lot of general managers out there, guys that are in charge, that would allow a guy like Jeff Ireland in the door and give him as much latitude and autonomy as he has, and really the credit that he gets as well. Look, this team turned around when Ireland came in, and of course, again, went from 7-9 to again contenders once again because of his drafting prowess. Elaborate on that, if you would.
Well, I just think Mickey Loomis is such an underrated general manager in the league and executive. A lot of people would have an ego involved and would not want another general manager to come in the building. Jeff Ireland's been a general manager at Miami, was high up in Dallas, comes from the Bill Parcells tree, which Mickey didn't come from. So it would be easy for him to nix bringing him on board, and that might be at the detriment of the success of the organization. Mickey just wants this. It shows how secure he is in his role. It also shows what I consider to be a great leadership trait, and that is know what you don't know. Mickey Loomis did not come from a personnel background.
Right.
He came from the business operations side. That's his strength and his training from the business side of a football organization. He knows that they needed to get stronger in their scouting department, and Jeff Ireland's one of the best talent evaluators in the league. I think it's very clear the draft success the Saints have had. So it's credit to Mickey Loomis. He's willing to bring him in because he knows it's going to make the Saints better.
Right. Now that you've had a chance to sit down with Jeff Ireland and get a feel for what he's looking for, the organization's looking for in terms of, let's talk a little bit about the draft. Peyton Turner first, again, a lot of people, myself included, a little bit surprised. I called it a fallback pick. He mentioned in that article with you, it was not a fallback pick.
No. Where they graded him late in the first round, he was their top player. Now, the way the grading system works, I think people have to understand this as well. There could be a handful of players at 28 that are graded the same, at the same grade, but then you've got them at different positions. And for the Saints, they felt like he was the best player at the position that they wanted to upgrade. And they're not just doing things when they make these picks for the 2021 season. General managers, personnel executives, they're looking what's the roster going to be like in 2022? What's it going to be like in 2023? That's when they're taking prospects. They're looking way down the road. So I think some people would look at it and say, well, we don't need a defensive end right now. Well, when you look at Cameron Jordan's drop-off last year, his contract, could be a very big need in a year. Right. It's no different when the Saints took Alvin Kamara and already had Mark Ingram on the team.
Sure.
Didn't really need a running back right then. Well, that looks pretty good now.
Yeah. When you look at Turner, and again, your colleague Larry Holder did an article this week on players that are drafted that have the opportunity to be plug and play. A lot of people believe first-round pick, plug and play, got to play immediately. For Peyton Turner, is he a guy that's going to play immediately? I know Peyton said he's in the rotation.
Yes, he's going to be in the rotation right away. There's no doubt about it. He'll be in that mix, and they're trying to acquire. Bill Belichick said this right around draft time. I read a great quote from him explaining personnel procurement. He said, we're trying to get the best players we can in the building, and whether that's an overload at one position or not, that's not the way we look at it. We look at it as let's get as many good football players as we can, and we'll figure it out. It's going to shake itself out. and this is a good example, I think, in taking Peyton Turner. They believe he has a very high ceiling. That I had one person in the building tell me that they think he could be another Michael Strahan, who also came out of Texas. Big, tall, rangy guy. So they are much higher on him, I think, in their scheme, and Dennis Allen's defensive scheme than a lot of other teams.
Pete Werner was another guy that, again, that some said, wow, he's not athletic enough for the NFL. But again, fits the prototype they're looking for in a linebacker.
Yeah, and I think they see him as a middle linebacker, and they can move DeMario Davis to the weak side.
Okay.
He's a run and hit type player. They think probably DeMario Davis was playing out of position last year out of necessity, and that they feel like Warner's the kind of guy that will call defensive signals, be their defensive captain for the next several years.
The guy that they thought Anzalone might be, right?
Right, and they feel like he's can play multiple positions. He's able to do some coverage. Very smart. Step in from day one. It's not going to take a lot of time to learn the playbook. He's very smart. He's very passionate about football, and they loved what they heard from the Ohio State coaching staff about him. He's a leader. All the things the Saints look for. They love team captains, guys that have leadership qualities.
Yes.
Pete Werner had that.
What does that say about Zach Bond?
Nothing. I don't think anything at all.
Right.
I mean, Zach Bond's a different position, more of a stack linebacker.
Yep.
He's not going to play middle middle. Pete Werner is going to be their Saints, I think, starting middle linebacker this season.
Paulson Adebo is interesting because a lot of people believe that he would have played last year. He would have been a first or second round pick. Maybe indirectly, the fact that he did sit out because of COVID-19, maybe that ends up helping the Saints because of him dropping there. But again, as you mentioned, prototype, exactly what they're looking for. And then the relationship between the two head coaches, Stanford and, of course, in New Orleans, also probably had something to do with it as well.
Yeah, David Shaw was on the Eagles staff with Sean Payton. They go way back. David Shaw is a very highly respected coach. A lot of NFL teams have interviewed him for a head coaching job. And Paulson Adebo was a former wide receiver. I think he came to Stanford, so he's got great ball skills, which is a trait the Saints look for in their cornerbacks. He didn't play extremely well his final season and wanted to come back and kind of have a bounce back season. And then, of course, we had the pandemic.
Yes.
So they in some ways feel like they have a little bit of untapped talent there that they can tap into. They're very high on their defensive coaching staff in the secondary. Brian Chris Richard, and also have Dennis Allen. That's his background.
Yes.
They feel like this is a guy that potentially could have first-round talent that they got in the third round.
What do you think the vision is for Ian Book?
Oh, I think the vision for him would be eventually have a chance to compete for the starting job. The worst case scenario, the floor would be as a quality backup.
And a guy that will be nurtured along slowly, in your opinion?
Yes, no question about it. I mean, I compared him when I was talking to Jeff to Jake Delhomme. Jake Delhomme's a good example of a guy that would not excel at the combine.
Yeah.
Doesn't have a big arm, isn't much to look at, kind of a lanky guy, but he's a gamer. He just knows how to win games, and I think he had a quality NFL career out of Louisiana Lafayette, and he knew how to win games. Players, teammates believed in him. They followed him. That's what you hear about Ian Book from Notre Dame. He won more games than any quarterback in Notre Dame history. It speaks highly of him, I think.
Not having the combine yet this year, not having the ability to have guys in the building to do the one-on-ones, which the Saints really like to do, not just, again, from a physical standpoint, but to get to know the prospect as well. In your conversations with Jeff Ireland, how tough was that this year as opposed to maybe previous years in scouting out a talent?
Well, it was definitely difficult. They were able to share a lot of medical information with other teams.
Okay.
The league overall set that up to make it work, but it's not like getting your own medical staff on them. Now, what he did say and made it clear in the Q&A was that they were being very conservative in that regard this year, more than ever, because of the uncertainty, not having a chance to evaluate some of these prospects. So players that had medical red flags, I don't think were ever going to be considered by the Saints. He didn't say that outright, but just reading between the lines, a guy like Caleb Farley, who a lot of people thought the Saints might be interested in, I don't think was a consideration at all. Same thing, we heard a rumor going around, I don't know where it came from, a lot of bad draft information out there that the Saints might be interested in Terrace Marshall. I don't think he was ever a consideration because of his medical concerns. And he's also, if you think about it, Eric, Terrace Marshall's basically Traquan Smith. I mean, it was the exact same kind of receiver. never made sense to me, that rumor, and I've talked to people internally that confirm that.
Landon Young is an interesting pick. I mean, you're talking 6'6", 310, all SEC out of Kentucky, and last till the 6th round.
Right, and was a very highly rated recruit that went to Kentucky. And as a guy that, again, this goes back to their value that they put on big men in the draft. They value offensive and defensive linemen. This is a guy that played a lot of games in the SEC, started a lot of games, again.
Against NFL talent on the defensive line.
Big-time player, and I think he could end up being their starting right tackle. Like, I could see it looking down the road, Saints signing Ryan Ramczyk to a long-term deal. Eventually, he moves to left tackle, and Landon Young's your starting right tackle. When that happens, I don't know, because they still obviously like Terron Armstead there, but that's the plan and the vision, I think, long-term.
They needed a receiver. They went and got Kwan Baker in the 7th round. Your thoughts?
Well, I think it was just a guy that they had some good size, speed numbers on, and a guy that they feel like could come in and compete. And they like their receiving core, their depth chart there, better than people outside the building, probably even better than I like it.
Right.
I don't know if they've got someone there that really scares people, like, just a game breaker. That's not Mike Thomas's role.
No,
Mike Thomas is an intermediate kind of possession receiver, go-to guy on 3rd down, go-to guy in the red zone, catches everything, tough, physical, but he's not going to score 50 yards away.
Right.
He's not Randy Moss. I felt like they needed that guy. I know the guy they really wanted, Eric, was Elijah Moore out of Ole Miss. They tried to trade up in round 2 to get him. They also wanted Tyson Campbell, the cornerback from Georgia.
Right.
Those were the 2 players they were targeting in the 2nd round. They were down at the bottom of the 2nd round and tried to negotiate a trade to get up and get one of them. Those 2 players went 1-2 in the 2nd round.
Yeah.
So they obviously had the same feeling about these players that other teams in the league did. But they liked Elijah Moore as a complementary piece.
Back to the wide receiver position for a moment. It's a different quarterback. It's a different quarterback with a different skill set now. Again, with a guy that either one of these guys, whether it be Winston or he'll have the ability to go downfield. It's not going to be a dink and dunk offense like maybe we've seen in the past where, again, you've seen maybe a declining arm strength with Breeze, but still has the accuracy. Now I think, again, you're going to have need receivers that can take the top off a defense. They have the ability to go to the 2nd and 3rd levels.
Well, we'll see. I mean, I don't know. We haven't seen it yet.
Right.
Draquan Smith's had some big plays in his career.
Yes.
He needs a big season.
No doubt.
There's no doubt this is a contract year for him.
Callaway's going to have to step up
Callaway, but you're talking about guys that,
undrafted free agents
you're counting on. We know Deontay Harris is kind of a stick of dynamite, but in a very small package, and he's been banged up the last 2 years.
And this is maybe an unfair question, minicamp comes and goes. Any undrafted free agents that maybe stuck out when you saw the list, say, man, this might have a chance to make it to the squad?
Well, I think there's just by looking at the depth chart, the tight end, I'm forgetting his name, from Iowa State.
Dylan Schooner.
Yes, and then the defensive tackle from Washington. Those would be I think it's from Washington, right? Or
Josiah Bronson.
Yes, those 2 I think have a great opportunity, but this was made clear to me, not from anybody with the Saints, but through some NFL people, not a great year for the draft overall. There wasn't a lot of depth to it, and that obviously would be, that would play out with the undrafted free agents. In other words, I don't think there's going to be a lot of these guys making the team just because I don't think the talent pool was as good this year.
Let's talk about needs now coming out of the draft, and now this next wave of free agency are, again, making trades for teams that may be overloaded at a position. Where do the Saints go from here?
They got to get a cornerback. They've got to get a veteran corner to start opposite Marshawn Lattimore. I don't think it's going to be Paulson Adebo, even though I think they're high on his long-term potential. Still a little raw, hasn't played a ton of football, and I don't think they feel comfortable with Patrick Robinson being the starter over there as well. So I think they will try to work the trade market, see if they can find a team maybe whose depth chart's overloaded after the draft, like you said. And if not, then they'll have to go into the free agency ranks. They have some moves they can make. They can extend Ramczyk long term if they want to do Lattimore. There's some options they have, Marcus Williams as well. They could free up some cap space to bring on a veteran like that. But I'll be stunned if the Saints open the season against the Green Bay Packers with someone other than, I mean, I won't be surprised if it's someone other than Patrick Robinson or Boston Adebo.
Let's talk about the linebacker position as well. Do you think they feel comfortable that again that they have a day one starter in Werner?
Yes, there's no doubt about it. And I don't think it's funny because linebacker I've always felt like, and Larry Holder and I go round and round on this, my colleague, but
yes.
I think linebackers, at least in the Saints scheme, they're basically a 4-2-5 defensive scheme.
No doubt.
They play two linebackers. DeMario Davis is one of them who plays almost all the snaps. So we're really talking about one other position there, and they're going to rotate that position in and out according to matchups. So I think they feel like they'll be fine at linebacker. The way they play their scheme, they don't match up their linebackers on opposing teams' tight ends. That's what Chauncey Gardner-Johnson does. That's what Malcolm Jenkins does. So for them, their linebackers are basically run stoppers, run defenders.
First place schedule, we have to remind everybody that, okay? Even though, again, Tampa Bay won the Super Bowl, Saints end up with a first place schedule. Networks believe in them. 5 primetime games, 2 Fox games, games of the week. A lot of the national pundits don't believe in this team. They believe this team's going to be under 500 and miss the playoffs. First of all, are you buying into that? Do you think this is a team that will not be a contender this year?
I don't. I think it's too early to say. I mean, I want to bail on the question, but you got a lot of talent coming back. You've got, I think it's 8 players that have made the Pro Bowl or All Pro in their careers. Okay. But 3 of those guys, I've brought this up before as well, are coming off down seasons. Cam Jordan, Mike Thomas because of injury.
Yes.
And I would throw Marshawn Lattimore in there. He was very inconsistent last year. 3 of your top talents, to me, you're counting on them to have bounce-back seasons or something better than they had. That's a big if.
Contract year for Lattimore.
Big question mark, But I still think it's a big question mark. So I'm kind of in the show-me mode here. Quarterback position, a lot of uncertainty there. You're counting on either Jameis Winston or Taysom Hill, who really, at this point in this offensive system, are unproven. I think it's hard to believe they're going to be better at quarterback than they were with Drew Brees, a Hall of Famer. So I think there's reason to be skeptical of this team, but there's still enough talent, if things go right, if they stay healthy, that they can contend for a playoff spot.
Knowing Sean Payton like you know Sean Payton, it's got to be a motivating factor for him.
No, there's no doubt about it. I think he's invigorated by it. He's going to get married this summer. It's big for him. I think get rooted here long term. I think he's very much stimulated by the challenge of rebuilding around another quarterback. Whether he can win or not with that, he doesn't know, I think, but he's stimulated by that challenge.
Well, there is a question whether he can develop quarterbacks. I mean, again, Brees kind of came in as a guy that was ready-made, and again, he's never really had to develop a quarterback behind Brees now. But you're in a situation now where, you got Ian Book, you're trying to take Jameis Winston off the scrap heap, and you got a guy that's kind of an enigma in Hill that's at your quarterback position now.
And I think if you want encouragement, you can see what Sean Payton did with Teddy Bridgewater and Taysom Hill the last 2 years, and you say, hey, they went 8-1 with these 2 quarterbacks. We saw Teddy Bridgewater once he went somewhere else, was pretty much the same guy before he came to New Orleans.
Yes.
So I think you look at that and say this team's good enough in other areas. Coaching's strong enough that they can be competitive at least for a playoff spot.
Your thoughts on the schedule?
Well, I think it's a good schedule. I think it's certainly a testament to what Peyton and Brees have done here. To me, the greatest part of their legacy is how they've changed the culture, the perception of the organization. The Saints are now one of the most high-profile teams in the league. It's also a testament to the popularity of this team and the fan base here.
Yes.
They know people watch Saints games. So you're going to put them in primetime games. And I don't think people quite know this, Eric, but the most watched games in the NFL are those 325 games on Fox.
Oh, yeah.
More people watch those games than Monday Night Football, even though there's no other game on. Those are the most. That's
America's game in a week.
That's the prime spot. The fact they got 2 of those games, 5 other primetime games, you basically have 70 or 17 games with the entire nation watching.
Yep. We're going to take a break. We come back. We're going to shift gears to the Pelicans, and also we'll talk some college baseball, some college football as well. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. Our guest tonight from The Athletic and also accomplished author, Jeff Duncan, joins us. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Listen, stick around. Hear a little bit from our underwriters, and we'll jump back to some content. Stay tuned.
Burkhart Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Experiencing rough weather with a bad roof can be a nightmare. It doesn't have to be.
Suburban Roofing, because when it comes to roofing, there is a difference.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Jeff Duncan of The Athletic is with us today. All right, we shift gears to the New Orleans Pelicans. Season is over, finished 31-41, did not even make the play-in tournament. They finished 11th in the West. They had the 9th highest payroll in the entire NBA. But yet, again, were unable to be able to make the play-in tournament. Look, I've been harsh. I think that when you look at it overall, when you have that, when the management and ownership puts that much money into a team, and that you need to at least make the play-in tournament. So to me, I think that, again, the season was a failure. Some people think that's a little bit harsh, but the expectations is when you have a player like Zion Williamson, when you made the moves you made in the offseason, that, again, you have to be in the playoffs, at least in that playoff tournament. And especially now. It's a 30-team league, and you've got 10 teams from each conference that are going into the playoffs now. It should not be hard to make the playoffs in the NBA.
No, and I agree 100% with you, and I think everyone in the Pelicans organization would agree. They took a step back when we were all expecting a step forward.
Yes.
And they have no real excuses. There were injuries, relatively speaking, were not an issue. You should have been able to offset some of the youth issues by bringing in Steven Adams and Eric Bledsoe. Those guys were veterans that were brought in to be part of the starting lineup and add some experience, and this team just didn't get it done. They couldn't finish close games. They were indifferent about playing defense. There were too many other holes, and I think Stan Van Gundy in his first year has to take some of the blame. Some of his in-game strategy at the end left a lot to be desired. So there's a lot of blame to go around, the roster construction, not having enough shooters. I do think Van Gundy and his staff did develop players better, at least in the short term, what we saw around Alvin Gentry. There's reason to be encouraged about the young players on this team, especially Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Jackson Hayes. Yes. We saw progress from those players. So there's some things to build around. Obviously, Zion Williamson's emergence as a superstar at age 20. Right. Lord knows what this organization would be like if they didn't win that lottery and get Zion Williamson. Can you imagine that? Right. They lucked out, and they still are struggling to get in the playoffs.
And that's the thing. And that's the thing that's frustrating. I like David Griffin. I think that David Griffin has the capability of building a championship roster. But I think he failed this year. I think, again, you look at the drafts, I think he's done very well in drafting players. And I think the coaching staffs, whether it be Gentry's staff, the holdovers, Van Gundy's staff, they've done a good job in getting with these young players, and you're seeing them progress. The problem is, in my opinion, is, again, the veterans that you brought in. J.J. Redick obviously didn't want to be here this year. It showed in his play, often injured. Really took a shot at the organization on the way out. Nico Melli did not fit in Stan Van Gundy's system. And then you bring in two guys that were supposed to be those culture-driving veterans, but, again, sort of a big part of what you were trying to do with, again, a J.J. Redick, an Eric Bledsoe, and a Steven Adams. Bledsoe didn't want to be here from day one. You can see it. He's not a second-team all-defensive player here in New Orleans. And Steven Adams, with the emergence of Point Zion, and Zion, again, being such a force in the middle, you kind of look at this and say, well, maybe he's not the fit that they thought he would be. So to me, it's the veterans that let this team down more than these young players who, again, yes, they had growing pains, but you can see that they're taking steps forward in terms of, again, their growth. What are your thoughts?
Well, and I think that I agree with what you said. I think the challenge is clear now. How does David Griffin rectify the situation?
Agreed.
He's going to have to. This offseason's big.
It's huge.
Critical. They've got to extract themselves from one or more of those contracts and retool this roster.
Yes.
You've got to make it fit around the skill set and the strengths on this team, and that is Zion Williamson being the force of nature he is as a point facilitator. And I agree. I think when they went after Steven Adams, they not necessarily know that was going to be the direction they were going with Zion Williamson. He tends to get in the way now.
Yeah.
He's a big guy. He plays a good role in some ways. He helps them when they do face bigs, but that's not the way the league's going. No. And so I think it'll be interesting to see if they move on from him, if they can even move on from him. Is someone going to take on that contract? Same thing with Eric Bledsoe. What do they do with Lonzo Ball? I personally think they're probably going to do a sign and trade with him.
Okay.
Move on from him. Will somebody take on Eric Bledsoe in a trade like that if they attach it? Will they have to use some of these draft assets to do it?
Yeah.
There's a lot of things up in the air, but David Griffin, make no mistake about it, he knows that. Last year's offseason did not make this team better.
No, it did not. They took a step backward.
Yeah, they did not get it done, and I think he knows that. Right. And there's a lot of pressure. I mean, the organization needs to win.
Yeah.
They've got to get some momentum, some excitement back from the fan base here. I mean, they're not filling up the arena, even with the limited capacity. A lot of no-shows in the arena not coming because the product wasn't very good.
Well, and also, you got to satisfy a young superstar. The one thing I liked about Zion's press conference is he didn't really sugarcoat anything. I mean, he showed his disappointment. Right. It wasn't one of these things around the team and the organization. No, he pretty much made it clear, I'm not happy being in the playoffs. And with the talent they had on this team, they should have been in the playoffs. Again, to me, it is the veterans that let them down. With that said, as mentioned, they've got to move off. They've got to do something again to retrofit this team. And they found out more about the Zion than maybe what they knew this year. And also, it was a transition year for Brandon Ingram as well. Look, the year before, he's an all-star. He's the main guy. Now you have to transition into him being a Robin to a Batman, the force that is Zion Williamson. So there was a transition period there for him as well. But you can't have two all-stars on a team and not make the play-in tournament.
No, there's no excuse for it. And look, I would even explore, and this is just me, Jeff Duncan speaking as a general manager, let me put my hat on. I would explore moving Brandon Ingram. He's got value.
Yes.
I'm not sure he's a great fit next to Zion. I'm not saying he gets you 20 a night. That's hard to find, but doesn't buy much on the defensive end. I would look at all possibilities except Zion Williamson. That guy's not going anywhere.
I agree. Everyone else is an asset.
Yes, but everyone else you have to consider.
Right. No, I'm with you. And I've said it since day one. Going back to, again, the Laker trade, don't fall in love with these players because we don't know what the situation is. They're looked at as assets. And again, every draft pick that they've acquired, whether it's first or second round picks, asset. Every player on this team, not named Zion Williamson, can be considered an asset that you can move to get better to be able to build around Zion. The problem is, as we know with Chris Paul and Anthony Davis, the clock moves very, very quickly. And you have to get yourself in a position where you're a perennial playoff team and that you're on the cusp of being a championship team or you're in that championship realm. And they're far away from that right now in terms of retooling this roster. Now, look, I think that next year, the young players are naturally going to get better, but based on seeing the next step they've taken this year. The critical thing is now, as you mentioned, getting off these bad contracts, moving off some of these veterans who either just don't want to be here or not fit here in New Orleans.
And the good thing is, with a player like Zion Williamson, he's going to attract talent. Players are going to want to play with a guy like him. Not only is he a tremendous player himself, but his natural, innate leadership is one of deferring to teammates.
True.
He helps make teammates better. He doesn't dominate the ball. He shares. He has got a winning mentality that players are going to want to play with. But let's just go back here and let's pull the lens back. The last decade, this team has had 2 winning seasons and 2 playoff appearances, and that's in spite of having Anthony Davis and Zion Williamson, who fell into the lap both times by the lottery ping pong balls. That's unacceptable.
It is.
The only other organization in the league have been that unsuccessful. We're talking the Detroit Pistons, the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Sacramento Kings, teams that are considered bottom feeders in the league, and they haven't had these superstars on the roster. So I think you can make a case and an argument that the Pelicans have underperformed more than any other team in the league.
I agree 100%. You can't have once-in-a-generation players and continue to be a farm team for the rest of the NBA, where literally you're allowing those guys to grow under your tutelage, and then again you don't move any further than again maybe a playoff run here or there, and then of course then they're off to again on the big market. Griffin said basketball IQ, toughness, and scoring. That is what he's looking for in the offseason. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, now where do you find that? I mean, that's not. Everyone's looking for shooting in the league. It's at a premium. It's hard to find. I mean, you got to pay for that. You can find it, but you've got to pay for it. Are they going to be willing to do that, considering some of their other limitations they've got? That's why moving these big contracts that they've got, if they can, is going to be critical to retooling this roster. But more than anything else, this team's got to play smarter. It's got to be tougher in those in-game situations. And I think some of that will come with maturity.
I agree.
There's no doubt. I mean, when you look at the youngest teams in the league, they're also the teams that are losing. Youth in this league doesn't really translate to success.
Jeff, I used the comparison. We may have talked about this on the radio show. The difference between the New York Knicks and the New Orleans Pelicans. Two coaches very, very similar in Thibodeau and Van Gundy. Both, again, tough, hard-driving coaches, defensive-minded. The big difference is the New York Knicks had a veteran team, and the New Orleans Pelicans had more of a young, up-and-coming team. And you look at the difference now in terms of what the Knicks were able to do in the East and what the Pelicans were able to do. And again, look, I will give a little bit of a pass for COVID-19, not the ability not to be able to practice, put your system in, especially when you got so many young players that are growing, as opposed to what Thibodeau had to deal with, where again he had veteran guys that could come in, they know how to play the NBA game. So again, a little bit of a pass there. But at the same time, if I'm Zion Williamson and I'm looking at my college teammate and I'm saying to myself, he's already in the playoffs and I'm sitting home, I'm not happy about that as well.
No,
with R.J. Barrett.
Well, and he made it clear. It clear. I mean, just think about it this way, Eric. I mean, Zion Williamson probably lost more games this year than he's lost in his entire basketball career.
Probably so, yeah. That's a great
considering
point.
Duke and Spartanburg Day Prep, he's not used to losing
even
like
AAU.
This. Right. He's not used to losing like this. And it's not going to sit well with him.
No.
Just talking to people in his circle, I know that he is, I think he's still totally bought in. I know he likes Stan Van Gundy. He's old school. I mean, the thing I like about Zion Williamson is he's kind of an old soul. He's kind of a throwback player. He's not your modern NBA superstar at age 20. And so he's going to like the mentality that Van Gundy brings. They just need more guys like that on this team. They don't have enough of them.
Josh Hart. Everybody wants to talk about Najee Marshall. I saw a small snapshot of Najee Marshall. I've seen a few years of Josh Hart. I know who Josh Hart is. Is that a guy you need to bring back?
I don't know. I think that's a question that David Griffin and Trajan Langdon are asking right now. Because what price do you bring him back?
He's going to get a raise. There's no doubt about it.
And so do you feel like you have a replacement in Najee Marshall? It's a similar kind of player that is going to be a lot cheaper when you're trying to add other assets out there. Is Josh Hart a good enough shooter? I like the way he plays, though. He plays hard. He's exactly what I think they're trying to get in that locker room. But how much is it going to cost them, giving their limitations they already have?
Right. You mentioned you think that Lonzo Ball is a sign-and-trade candidate.
I think so. That's just my opinion. I feel like if they're going to run the offense through Zion, you still got to get another lead guard. Is Kyra Lewis? I think that's a big question mark.
Sure.
He's a very young player. He kind of regressed as the season went on. You saw flashes of talent there. But do you feel good enough about him that he can eventually be your lead guard? Because, yes, you run the offense through Zion, but you still have to have a point guard that can handle the ball to close out games.
There's no doubt.
And that's where they were really missing it.
That for sure. They have a lottery pick somewhere between 8 and 10. Possibly, again, could move up into the top 3 depending on how the ping pong balls fall. Do you expect them to hold on to that lottery pick? They got a very young team now.
No, I definitely think they will. I think they look at this as a draft that has a lot of talent in the lottery. And I don't think they're done exploring overseas. I think that they value that area as scouting. I think they're going to turn over every stone to try and build this. They understand the clock's ticking, and they also understand how great a talent Zion Williamson is.
The LA pick will stay with LA this year. It's protected 8-30, so they'll keep their first-round pick. That'll defer to next year, where the Pelicans will pick up that pick. Of course, they can. They have the trade swaps if they decide to move off of that. They have a myriad of second-round picks. You just mentioned something. I think the direction they're going to go. You can't utilize all these second-round picks.
No.
You could take those second-round picks and attach them to a deal to be able to get a deal done. Maybe to get a move off of a Bledsoe or off of a Steven Adams, because you have so many of those picks. But also you can stash European players, international players with second-round picks. San Antonio made a living off of that. Again, stashing players overseas. They did it with Didi Louzada this past year. We'll see how that kind of works out. I can see them utilizing some of those second-round picks in stashing players for the future here in New Orleans.
People forget Manu Ginobili was a second-round draft pick.
Right.
Guy's going to be a Hall of Famer.
No doubt.
You know, if you have good scouting, especially with the Pelicans have got the hard part figured out, finding your franchise player.
Right.
That's what everybody's trying to get. You've got your Robin, your Batman with Brandon Ingram. So that's the hard part's done. Now you got to fill in around them, find the role players, the glue guys, and establish the culture that's going to take this team to the next level.
Let's go to baseball quickly. Again, big weekend for everyone in the state, trying to be able to get into the regional. Tulane opens up a 4-game schedule against Cincinnati in the American Athletic Conference. LSU is going to be at College Station, taking on Texas A&M. The Green Wave are 28-18, 17-6 within their conference. Half a game out of first place behind East Carolina. The Tigers are 32-20, 11-16 overall. They were projected earlier as a 18th RPI. That dropped down to 22 now. Both Tulane and LSU are projected as third seeds in separate regionals. Out at the Southland, remember that is going to be a one team league in terms of getting one bid league, as the Athletic will be as well. The American Athletic. UNO is 28-24, 23-17 overall. They're at Oklahoma State this weekend. In fourth place, Southeastern Louisiana is 28-20. They're 20-15 within the Southland. They got a 4-game series with Houston Baptist at home. Critical weekend for everyone in the state, including Louisiana Tech, who is, at least on paper, looks like they're going to host a regional in Ruston.
Yeah, they've had a tremendous season. Louisiana Tech, very well represented in the state as far as like national seeds potentially.
Yes.
Now, obviously, it hasn't been the season LSU wanted. It's been very disappointing. I think everyone had great expectations. They were going to be back in the, hosting a regional. They have rallied a little bit here in the SEC and kind of gained a little bit of momentum. They're playing much better. But there's no doubt about it. I mean, you're not expecting LSU to have that kind of SEC record. Kind of unacceptable in a lot of ways with the resources they have there. They're second to none in college baseball. So, but it has gotten a lot more competitive. There's no doubt about it. But it's been disappointing to see what's happened in Baton Rouge this season. That doesn't mean they can't get hot at the right time. Baseball can be that way. They've been playing a lot better. I think Tulane, really unfortunate a year ago that they lost that season, because that was one of the best seasons they were on really, I think, on their way to having a special season. But I also feel like they are on the fringes there. They need to finish strong this weekend as well, kind of make their mark and solidify their spot in the NCAA regionals.
Right, and as mentioned, one bid league with the Southland, and right now, UNO and Southeast have really been fighting for first place the entire season. They dropped back because, again, bad series losses this past weekend, but they're all in the mix. By the way, Southeastern will host the Southland Conference this year in Hammond, so again, a home conference for them. Maneri was approaching, could have had his 1,500th win as a head coach. They lost to Northwestern 7-3 in a midweek game. A lot of pressure on Maneri this year.
Yeah, well, look, I think it's been disappointing. I think he'd be the first one to tell you, especially the way they started. I mean, they started well, and then as soon as they got into league play, they were kind of exposed. And And I think Paul Maneri's under a lot of pressure. There's a lot of factions in the LSU community that are unhappy with the direction of the baseball program. It's been that way for a while. But anybody that's covered Paul Maneri knows, I mean, he is a great ambassador for the program. Could not be a better guy, I mean, to deal with. But there's a lot of expectations. You got that stadium down there that they have. There's no reason why LSU should not be a top 10 program every year. And I think that's the expectation and the standard that Skip Bertman set.
Sure, absolutely, no doubt about it. Just quickly on basketball, Will Wade, even with this cloud hanging over him, is reloading his roster. He's got an incoming class that's 10th ranked. He's got 3 guys that got out the transfer portal, all guys that should either start or contribute. Your thoughts about the retooling of this basketball team?
Pretty impressive.
It's pretty amazing.
How he keeps doing it. I mean, Efton Reed, big-time center out of Florida that they beat a lot of major programs out. I think kids see Will Wade plays the game. I mean, their style of play is fun. I mean, they get them down the court. They're an exciting team to watch. I think kids are attracted to that. And he has a great sense of, like, building a roster, finding players in the transfer portal. He's embraced that.
Yes.
It is a major sea change in college basketball. It's one of the main reasons Roy Williams retired.
Yeah.
He did not want to have to re-recruit his players on the roster. Mike Krzyzewski has been very critical of it. I don't know what the future of college basketball is going to be, because it seems to be a college basketball issue more than anything else. But it certainly feeds in and is an advantage for someone like Will Wade, who's such a tremendous recruiter, that he can go out and put together a team the way he's done this year.
And I would add a caveat to that, especially with the NBA now, again, opening up and allowing guys to come directly from high school. When that happens, that's going to also change things. And, of course, a lot of guys choosing to go to the G League or going overseas, getting paid rather than going to college for a year or two. That changes things as well.
And I like that. I mean, I'm old school. I don't think players should be paid. I like the name, image, and likeness legislation. I think that is good for the college athlete. But I don't think we should get into the business of paying college athletes. If you want to be a professional, go pro. And I think they should be allowed, especially the unique talents like a Zion Williamson, Anthony Davis, to go pro right out of high school, the ones that can do it. But once you go, I think there should be the college basketball should adopt the college baseball rule. You're there 3 years. And then move on.
I agree.
And I think it would solve all the issues.
The minor league baseball, that rule is one that should have been in college basketball a long time ago. Let's talk some LSU football. Speaking of the transfer portal, they get Mike Jones out of Clemson, the linebacker. This week they get Major Burns out of Georgia, a guy that, again, is a Louisiana kid out of Madison Prep. All of a sudden, Ed Ogeron tapping into that transfer portal. On the other hand, he loses T.J. Finley. There's a big chance he may be at an SEC school, which you don't want to see. But again, he's a huge talent. Your thoughts on, again, how they've handled recruiting in this new era of, again, transferring without penalty?
Well, I think kids now are looking around. They're doing their own evaluations of depth charts, seeing where they can get opportunity, and they see some opportunity in Baton Rouge. With a coach that a lot of players want to play for. LSU is always going to be attractive to players.
I agree.
Saturday night, Tiger Stadium is one of these special atmospheres in all college sports. It reminds me a lot of when Bobby Bowden had to go into Florida State, Tallahassee, very similar type of atmosphere. And I think the question on LSU is going to be the talent's there. The quarterback position, I think you have to like the talent they have there. What is going to happen with the coordinators? How are they going to implement their schemes? How much of a learning curve are we going to have against a very good schedule? But I like the talent, and I think last year was something of an anomaly. But we're going to find out going forward. Because let's face it, Ed Ogeron did not do a good job after winning that national championship.
No, there's no doubt. And you cannot let down like he did and have the type of season he did. With everything that went on, well, again, internally, externally, whatever it is, you got to have a bounce back year. And you got to show consistency going forward. You can't have an up and down situation. And look, you're right. Transfer portal, top SEC teams, top teams in the nation, they're going to have the pick of the litter. And this is where you can fill holes instantly. But you have the chance of losing guys like you're seeing at that quarterback position. On the other hand, Tulane, well, they dodged a bullet. Jeffrey Johnson looked like he was in a transfer portal trying to get to an SEC team. He's decided to come back to Tulane. They pick up Joseph DeCorcus, defensive lineman out of Memphis. What are your outlook on for the Greenies this year?
Well, I'm high on them. I mean, I think they found their quarterback, Michael Pratt. It's a guy that I think could be an NFL player down the road. Certainly is the leader of the program. And they did not could not afford to lose Jeffrey Johnson after losing Cam Sample, Patrick Johnson in the NFL draft. I mean, you can't lose another defensive lineman. He's a good one. He can play anywhere. So I'm high on Tulane. Now they've got a difficult schedule as well.
Yes.
You got Oklahoma coming in, but when you have a quarterback like Pratt, you can make things happen.
Right. Got about a minute and a half left. Kim Mulkey, her influence on LSU.
Well, it was a home run hire
Yeah.
for Scott Woodward. I mean, the biggest hire he's made
No
so
doubt.
far. Now they're going to put resources into women's basketball. I assume they are. She wouldn't have come here if she didn't feel like they were going to win at a high level. But she brings instant brand recognition, and now they should be able to get in living rooms of any top recruit in the country. I think it's going to change the landscape of women's basketball in the SEC West.
How much does that help them, if any, with, again, the sexual assault, sexual harassment cloud over the university?
Well, it doesn't hurt. I mean, it shows a commitment to women's athletics, but it's going to take a lot more than that. And I'm still waiting for them to handle some of the internal issues, the cultural issues.
It's true.
It goes beyond just hiring one key person in the athletic department.
No doubt. Jeff, one more time, tell us about The Athletic and again, where folks can find your book.
Yeah, you can go on my website, if you will, on Facebook. There's a Peyton and Breeze Facebook page, or you can go to my Twitter account at @JeffDuncan_. If you want to get a personal copy, I can sign it, personalize it to you. You can order them that way. And look, I've got a big story coming out next week. I think a lot of local viewers are going to want to read about Arch Manning.
Yeah.
And his recruitment, which I think is going to be one of the most anticipated recruitments in the history of college football.
LSU got a shot?
Yes, amazingly they do.
Okay, that would be a first.
Yeah, you're right. For Manning, yes.
Yeah, no doubt, that would definitely be a first. Thanks for your time as always.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Jeff Duncan of The Athletic, and of course, fantastic book. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there's a lot of ways to be able to catch this program now. Our first rebroadcast is tonight at 6 p.m. on WLAE-TV. Then at 10 p.m. on The Deuce, WLAE-TV 2. Friday night, 9 o'clock, Pelican Sports Television, 10 o'clock on WLAE. Saturday morning at 2 a.m. on The Deuce, and then back on Pelican Sports Television at 5 o'clock on Pelican Sports Television. We're on ericasher.com, also the WLAE-TV YouTube page. All of our social media platforms have this program available for you to see at your leisure. Also, again, you catch me on the radio on 106.1 FM, weekdays 4 to 6, taking you home. Again, I hope you check out the program there. Also, Anchor is our main base for our podcast, but we're on all the major podcasting platforms. You can listen live at ericasher.com, the iHeartRadio app, and the TuneIn Radio app as well. Again, special thanks to Jeff Duncan for joining us on the program. Also to our incredible underwriters who make this show possible. Please continue to support those fantastic underwriters. And of course, the production staff here at WLAE-TV who do a great job each and every week. Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, also Alex Chacon, and William Ingram. Also, got to give a big shout out to, again, the best director in the business, William Hill. My name is Eric Asher. Thanks so much for tuning in. Certainly appreciate you checking out the program. We'll be back next week with another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. For Jeff Duncan, again, have a great weekend. That's it for Inside New Orleans Sports.